it can lead to potential burnout on the part of the creator. But if you level up enough, you can actually gain access to a tangible reward. And these are the top 3 most used categories. All right, so in today's online community case study, we'll be taking a look at THP Jump Training, which is hosted on Skool.com. And of course, we'll be starting with the strengths that the THP Jump Training program brings to the table. And I think a good place to start off with this particular online community is the banner itself, which is very simple and it depicts the transformation that is expected of a member. What's really cool about this particular banner is that if you go to the Discover Communities page on Skool.com and you find the THP Jump Training Program, you'll see that even people who aren't in the community yet, this is the first thing they see. And you see the transformation. So, and he literally writes, I went from this to this. So he's here, he's struggling to dunk. This is what the community does. It helps people become better at dunking. And here he's like barely touching the rim of the basket, and over here he's like flying like Superman. So it's very clear, crystal clear what the transformation offers. You don't even need to necessarily read the description underneath it, which of course says this course will give you all the resources needed to get your first dunk and beyond. So you don't even necessarily need to read that to understand what's going on. That's how powerful an image can be, and that's what the banner image of this particular community brings to the table. Otherwise, again, if you go underneath the community banner, you'll see a very simple and to the point description, which reaffirms basically the image of what's going on, that this community helps with dunking. I would say that it doesn't necessarily need the and beyond part. That's just kind of marketing jargon. And it also leaves prospective members or members to try to interpret what beyond means. I've interpreted it as marketing jargon. Maybe it means something else, but I think when it comes to what your community is about in terms of its description, you want to make it as streamlined and as simple and approachable as possible. So to add kind of these fluff terms like beyond, which can mean anything, I think takes away from the powerful simplicity that this description would have otherwise been had it just been, this course will give you all the resources needed to get your first dunk. All right, so moving on, one of the other strengths that this community brings to the table is the daily tips category here. So this is a forum-based community hosting platform, Skool. And so each forum can be divided into sections. So here we have Q&A, wins, injuries, and so forth. So if you go to daily tips, which is one of the strengths here, I think this is a great way of having the community builder or the creator of the community interact on a regular basis with his members by having these posts, which, well, he claims are daily. In truth, they're not, which is like, I'm not going to take that away from the creator. But if you're going to name your category daily tips, then it's probably makes sense to just like provide tips on the daily, which he doesn't, and which is understandable because it would be difficult to provide 365 distinct dunking tips a year, basically, which would be hard to do, hard to pull off. So I think it would be best perhaps just to rename this section to something along the lines of Isaiah's tips. Moreover, another point worth bringing up in the context of the daily tips category is that it can lead to potential burnout on the part of the creator if you're having to come up with novel, valuable advice on the daily or on a recurring basis. So it's just something to consider. It's a strength in the sense that you get to associate with your community members and provide value to them, but it's also potentially can lead to burnout if you're doing this on a consistent basis. Next, one of the strengths of the THP Jump Training program would also be the classroom, which has incentives for leveling up. And what I mean by that is there are level caps to accessing certain features and courses within the community itself. So in the classroom tab in Skool, you'll see in the THP Jump Training program, there's obviously this is anyone can access it as soon as you join, but he has, for instance, courses that unlock at level 2. So that will incentivize members to actually engage with the community space, rack up likes, which equal points, which level them up, and allows them to access materials like this free training program here. And I thought this was really interesting, right? So at the higher rungs of leveling up, You can even not win rather, but access a one-on-one call with the actual community builder slash creators here. And you can even get a free THP t-shirt, which I thought was cool because this is an online community. So everything about it is digital. But if you level up enough, you can actually gain access to a tangible reward, which is very cool to have something physical from an intangible digital community. In terms of the strengths, the about page is really simple and to the point. Literally, the description is one sentence. He's not listing benefits as community builders typically do in this section. He's just saying community for athletes that want to jump higher, and that's about it. He lets the image here speak for itself, but more importantly, he lets the social proof of the community speak for itself. That is 27,000 members. It's free, and then you have the coach here, Isaiah. So the social proof really lies in its numbers. You'll say, okay, well, there's nearly 30,000 members who enjoy this space. It must be worth something, right? So now we'll be moving on to the weaknesses that the THP Jump Training Program has as an online community. And we're going to start off with the fact that for the singular goal that this community has, which is to simply improve its members' dunking ability, it just has way too many categories going on for its own good. You have Q&As here, wins, injuries, technique, announcements, daily tips, information. That's a lot for a community that simply has one focus. And if I refer to my notes here, I've listed down the amount of posts that each one of these forum categories has so that we can see which are the most used by its members and which are the least used by its members. So at the time of making this video, the community's Q&A section here has 3,006 posts. The wins category has 453 posts. The technique category has 394. And these are the top 3 most used categories in this community. Outside of that, the other ones, injuries, announcements, daily tips, information, they're barely used in comparison to the much more frequented Q&As, wins, and techniques. So at its core, this community can just consist of the Q&As, the wins, the techniques, and the announcements, which are just a moderator's only forum for special announcements and whatnot. Perhaps the daily tips, it could go without the technique and the information, and it's going to make things more condensed and more focused. It's not going to spread out all the conversations across several different categories, and with some categories barely even being used. Otherwise, in terms of weaknesses or things that could improve on, one thing is the logo. As you can see, it's quite small and it's pretty redundant with the community banner image. It certainly conveys the transformation, which is a good thing, but the banner already does that for this community. So you might as well have some kind of unique symbol or some kind of visual that is more seeable, that's more illegible rather than this, which is very hard to see what's going on from a distance. Obviously, it's someone here struggling to dunk and someone who's dunking effortlessly on the right-hand side, but it's very tiny and it's pretty much just the community banner image repeated. So you can use this visual real estate for something new. Otherwise, the name of the community itself can use some work, because for the uninitiated, for the people who aren't a part of the space, who aren't a part of dunking culture, let's say, they don't know what THP means. Like, what does THP mean? Everyone knows what jump training is, but in terms of the abbreviation, what does THP mean? I, for one, don't even know exactly what it means, since I'm not necessarily into dunking or basketball or jump training for that matter. But I looked it up and it might mean thrust horsepower. That I don't know for certain because it isn't explained anywhere else in the community. I guess it's just assumed that you know what this is about if you're into this kind of thing. So perhaps the community could have done with a more clear title or name for itself that didn't leave any questions to be had. So that was just another thing worth considering as well. And lastly, one thing I'll say about the About page is, although it is very simple, which is a good thing in terms of streamlining, in terms of, ease of understanding of what's going on, it could have perhaps benefited from at least a brief several-minute video of the community builder / creator just explaining what's going on, adding some additional context to this phrase here, community for athletes that want to jump higher. What does that mean? What does that entail? Some context could have been shed on this description here, as well as this description here. He could have talked about what you can find inside the courses, the course material, the benefits and whatnot. So perhaps just having a short video on the about page as well would help for context. And lastly, in terms of things that this community can improve on, I noticed that there was some conflict between the description in the about page here, where it says a community for athletes that want to jump higher. So bear in mind community. And then with the description underneath the community banner, which is this course will give you all the resources needed to get your first dunk and beyond. So there's a bit of a conflict between, is this a community or is this a course, right? So obviously it's a community because Skool.com is a community hosting platform, but I think that's why you would need an extra video for context here, just to maybe elaborate and explain that, yes, this is a community that does feature a course that will help you improve your dunking ability, but to just describe it as a community in one place and then to describe the same product or service or community rather as a course is a pretty confusing thing for people on the outside.